Cascado's Filmmaking Studio presents Wholehearted Marketing!
Hi everyone, welcome to our next member Q&A today. Today I am talking to the lovely Frances Pratt, who from Kiss to Sell, and she is going to talk to us all about selling, in particular what she calls soulful selling, because, you know, we don't like that really nasty, horrible stuff that we think of when we think of sales. So, Frances, if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do and why you actually tackle this topic, that would be fantastic.
Thank you so much, Kath, and welcome everybody. Look, I've been in sales and selling for more than 20 years, and I really love it. I love helping people, and I love that feeling when I can solve someone's problem and help them out, and there's nothing better in my mind anyway. So, and I'm a bit of a freak because I even love cold calling. So I know, shh, don't tell anyone. But what I also know is, particularly for women, but men as well, there's lots of people out there who really don't feel comfortable with sales and selling. And so I've made it my personal mission to help those people understand that the reason they feel uncomfortable is because they don't really understand what great selling is, or soulful selling. And so I want to take these people on a journey so that they can understand that they can be themselves and they can represent their business and they can get people to buy from them in a way that makes them feel comfortable and happy and their clients feel comfortable and happy. So that's me. That's what I want to do. I've got a theme song.
Yeah, what is it? Tell me about it.
I hope everyone's prepared. Okay, ready? I've only written the first little bit, but you might remember. You might know the tune. I wanna teach the world to sell in perfect harmony. That's it. That's all I've written.
That's going to be embedded in our brains forever.
Hooray!
Okay, so we'll just start off, and we've got a few questions that we want to deal with, but I really wanted to speak to you today because selling is quite different from marketing, and you know, you can get all the right things in the place, but eventually you've just got to try and help people get over the line.
Yep.
Now, I've done a lot of sales training. I was a rep for 7 years for a paper company, and we get sales training pretty much every year. And there's certain processes and things in that. But I've discovered in myself that now that I've got my own business, it's still really hard. And I've had, years and years of sales training. Why is that? And, does it matter whether you're introverted or extroverted and all that sort of stuff? How does that sort of, why is it so hard to sell yourself?
That's a great place to start, Kath. Thank you. And it's a great question. I think even someone as fabulous at selling as me struggles to talk about yourself. And I think part of that's kind of ingrained in us as Australians and particularly as women. We don't really feel comfortable talking about ourselves. We feel like we're boasting and that people will be bored and not interested in what we do. And, you just don't want to come across as that sort of sleazy, pushy, disgusting person that, and we all know those people that suddenly, if you're at a barbecue or the footy or whatever, they just suddenly are always talking about their business and wanting, talking about themselves. And we don't want to be that person. So we shrink away from that and we go to the extreme opposite of that. And so the answer for everybody, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert or an ambivert or anything in between, is just to be yourself. Yes. If you think about how you buy or why you buy from somebody, because it's about buying, and if we think about it like buying rather than selling, suddenly we feel much better about it. So if you think about who you buy from people that you know, that you like, and that you trust. So if you break that down and go, well, how do I get to know someone? Well, you've got to be yourself, and you've got to present yourself in a way that's meaningful and honest. and that builds likability, well, for most people, and it also builds. So,
yeah, cool. Because and so as far as that process goes, how do you sort of see that sales process falling into place? You know, sort of, I know that what I've sort of done in that, you know, you're trying to help people buy really is what you sort of
exactly. So
and then you can't do that until you really understand what it is that they're looking for and what problems they've got.
That's perfect. You must have been reading my stuff.
Right. No, it's all those years of sales training, right?
Yeah. So I think if we get away from the mindset of thinking that we're pushing something on someone and selling something to someone, and that's where I start. You've got to start in someone's mind, and particularly people who don't know sales and selling. The mind plays awful tricks on us, and they go, oh, people are going to think that I'm horrible and pushy and icky, and I don't want to come across as that person. So if you just delete all of those things out of your brain and say, okay, I'm going to help people buy. Suddenly, where we think that starts, or how you start thinking about that, is completely different. Firstly, you're more comfortable with it. So your body language, how you talk about it and what you do is completely different. And then right at the beginning, if you're going to help someone, and whether that's to understand whether they can buy from you or not, or whatever. But if you're going to help someone, first you've got to understand them. So helping starts with listening. So if you can really fully listen to someone and think about, well, what are the key questions? How do people start? What pain do they have? What does that feel like for them before they meet me? So if I was to use my business as a kind of a stepping stone to help people understand that, what I know is that before people find me, they think sales and selling is, they really cringe. They cringe at the very thought of it. They know they've got to build their business through clients, but they really, they might be good at talking to people, but they don't necessarily put all the steps together, and that doesn't necessarily translate into new clients for them. Equally, I've got some people who know that they can do that. They can convert new people that they meet into clients, but they just don't know how that works or why it works, and so they can't amplify that when they want to. So that's when people start with me. So if I'm talking to a new potential client, then I can ask them questions around that. How do you feel about sales? What successes have you had? What does that mean for you? So I really understand the full impact of what that problem means for my new potential client.
Yes. Cool. Okay, so moving on from that, I think one of the other things I really find is I hate having people say no. And I just, and this certainly came up with the questions that we had, is like dealing with objections and, having people say no. And it was interesting when you're doing it with somebody else's products. It's like, yeah, whatever, you deal with objections. But for you, the word no is very personal.
Yeah, because they're saying no to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's why I didn't try and use it with my child when I was, No, we didn't use the word no. We used stop, because no, we weren't coming back to you. Just feels like an attack. How do you deal with that? And what do you recommend? I mean, hopefully to actually avoid it in the first place, but certainly if it does come, what does it mean? And how can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the first thing to understand is that if you think about sales as a funnel, that you've got to have a number of people come in to your orbit. You've got to have those people process and understand how you can help them. And you've got to help those people make a decision. And I think the way I look at it is I do all of those processes with love. So I allow those people to enter. I allow those people to ask as many questions as possible. I allow them to understand what I do and how I might be able to help them. And then I allow them with love to leave my orbit if that's what they choose. So I think part of the understanding about no is that it will happen.
Yeah.
So if you talk to 100 people, a percentage of them will say no, and that's great, because that just means, it doesn't mean that they don't value you. It just means that what you're offering and what that means for them isn't right for them right now. So it's very important when you encounter a no. And I was just doing this yesterday. I rang a guy and I pitched an idea to him, and he said no. And that's okay, because that's part of the process.
Yeah.
But also, I don't want to leave him feeling like he can't come back to me.
Yeah.
So a no, one of the reasons to be gracious when someone says no to you is you want to make it perfectly okay for them, so that if 6 months, 2 months, 2 days down the track, he suddenly goes, you know what, I really do need Fran's help. I don't want him at all to feel awkward that we left it in a funny situation. So I want him to think, oh, you know what, Fran was right. I do need her help.
Yeah. It's actually quite a different approach, because, I know that when we were sort of dealing with objections and all that kind of stuff, it kind of meant that you perhaps hadn't listened hard enough, or you hadn't perhaps understood the problem hard enough. And but it's very different when in a small business. I mean, we worked in a large business that pretty much we had the solution to everything. Whereas as a small business, you're not the solution to everybody. And not only that, but you don't want to necessarily take on everyone, because, there's only one of you.
That's right.
You want to just work with the people that you really want to work with and who you're going to be a really good fit for. And knowing whether you've got a product or a service, that your solution is actually going to solve what their real problem is.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, Kath. I think when I'm describing soulful selling, what I want people to think about is, how do they have a really beautiful adult relationship with this other person? So if you think about the adult relationships that you have, it's about being honest and open. It's about saying what you are and aren't bringing to the relationship. It's about allowing the other person to do the same thing. And at the end of those discussions, it's about thinking and discussing with the other person, is this right for both of us?
Yeah.
And so if you think about the sales process like that, which is what it should be, then sometimes you say no to them.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you said you've done a lot of sales training, and as have I. I think one of the big misconceptions that sales training has out there is that objections are something to get rid of and move out of the way. I think that's a really a misrepresentation of what an objection is. So the first time someone encounters an objection, what I want you to be thinking is, I don't want you to think, how do I answer that so it goes away? I want you to think, the first thing I want you to think is, wow, that's fantastic, I've got an objection, because an objection means that the person is considering buying from you. And so we should all be really pleased about that.
Yeah.
And so they're not something to be gotten rid of, they're something to be nurtured and understood and answered fully.
Yeah.
And then once we've done that, we can move on. Oh, there are any more objections? I want to hear all of them. I want to know all the queries and problems and issues and concerns that you have, so that when we move forward together, I know that you and I are going to do this right. So that you're going to get the best value, I'm going to get the best value, and everyone's going to be happy. So objections, when I talk about objections with people, objections are your friends. So sometimes no doesn't mean no. So sometimes people will bring up objections or say no to start with because they don't fully understand the value that you're providing. So instead of looking at that no as a stopping sign, I want you to nurture and understand that, so that if this person is the right client for you, you can help them uncover it together with you, and you can help them buy from you.
Cool. You spoke earlier about this sales funnel, and look, when you've got something that's shaped like that, you're obviously not going to get everything that comes filtered through. And I know there's a lot of talk about sales funnels, and some of it I don't necessarily resonate with. But I just wanted to get, perhaps your idea of how that works, and how, what are some nice ways, some good soulful ways to sort of help people through that process?
Yeah. Thanks, Kath. And just going back to no, I think when I'm coaching people in sales, one of the, if people are getting upset about no's, the first thing I talk about them with is, okay, I remember I was helping a woman who was quite new to real estate selling, and she was excellent. She's very different in how she approached it, and she was doing some amazing things, which was wonderful. But I think she only had 3 live opportunities, and so when one of those said, and she needed to get all of them across the line in order to meet her quota. So when someone said no, that was the end of the world for her, because she wasn't going to get her 3. So I just said to her, darling, of course, if you've only got 3 on the table and you need 3, when someone says no, that is devastating. So the answer isn't to get devastated because there's 3. The answer is to have 9 on the table, so that you prepare yourself and you allow yourself to graciously allow people to say no to you, but not have that impact on meeting your quota.
Yeah.
So it's what I often find in small business, and when people run their own business, is they don't actually understand what their quota is. And we should all think about the numbers of sales. Yeah. So what I encourage people to do is backtrack their numbers. So what revenue do you want? How many new clients do you want? And then let's go backwards from that. If you want 3 new clients a month, or 1 new client a month, then you need to have 3 on the table. It's that simple. So that if you want 1 and you've got 3 or 4 on the table, then when someone says no, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you still have another 3. And it's very unlikely, because sales is a numbers game, it's very unlikely that all 4 are going to say no to you.
Yeah.
So what happens is, and it is absolutely a funnel. So if you want to get to that 1, you might need to be talking to 10 new people a month, and that might take them 3 months to come through. And you first talk to them, and then you might have a meeting with them. And from meeting to them saying yes, it might be a 4-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
So, and it normally takes them 30 days to make that decision, or a week or 2 weeks. So suddenly, if you know those numbers, instead of what I find with small business and people who run their own business, they get so busy in the doing, they forget to fill their funnel. And so it's a feast and famine,
Yeah.
Whereas if they know, exactly. So, but if they know, great, I've got to talk to 3 people a week, then they can put that, eat your frogs. Put that on, if you're going to do that Tuesday morning, do it Tuesday morning. Call those 3 people, set up an appointment. So out of those 3 people, you might get 1 appointment. But if you're doing 1 appointment a week and you only want 1 new client a month, then your numbers are already there.
Yeah.
So it's about getting into that regularity and the pattern and the flow of sales as a normal part of things that you do every week. Just like you invoice. If you invoice weekly or monthly, you do that every week or month. Well, sales should be the same.
Yeah. And these are people that you've already done a lot of that marketing and attracting to. So you've already got them. They already know who you are. Because, you can't sell anything to somebody who doesn't even know you exist. So you've already gotten to that point where they've contacted you in some way and sort of said, well, tell me more. Or you've met them and they're showing a bit of interest or something like that. So, I get that. That's just actually making that time to do that more sales type stuff to actually help people through. Yeah. All right, cool. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today, Frances? Because we were a bit short on questions, to be honest, and I'm not quite sure why. I think it just scared everybody off.
Well, but that's so true.
And I'm hoping that that this will actually help them, because it is such a lovely approach that why wouldn't people want to do this? So.
Well, I think, to me, when I've written, maybe I'll tell you this story. This might help. And we did have one more question, but I'll leave that one to the end if
right,
that's okay.
yes.
But I just want to tell you a story. Recently, I've written a series of blogs on sales, because that's what I write about the Wizard of Oz. And how the Wizard of Oz can help us sell. And people look at me like I've got 3 heads, and that's okay. So let me just run you through how the Wizard of Oz can help you sell. Okay, so let's start with the beautiful Dorothy. And if you think about the movie, it's one of my favourite movies, so I just love it. She is in a world of black and white. And she goes through a storm, a big tornado. So it's something very tumultuous, and she's in pain. She lands in a foreign place. She's just killed someone. Oops. But she's got some pretty new shoes. But she's in Technicolor. The first time that anyone's seen a movie in Technicolor. And Dorothy lands in the middle of it. So just think about how she feels in that environment. And Dorothy is your client. So they've been through something that has spurred them to change, or to look for change, or to change something that they're doing. And suddenly they land in a completely foreign place, and they're scared, they're excited, they've got their Toto. This isn't Kansas anymore, so they want to know more, but they don't know where to start. And so Dorothy is still in her house, or on the steps of her house, and she can hear these little voices of the munchkins, and she can see all the beautiful flowers and everything. And who comes? Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. Here she comes, and she's stunning. And this is you. You are Glinda, the Good Witch of the North. So Glinda knows so much, and she's so gracious. But she doesn't say to Dorothy, she doesn't say, look, tap those ruby shoes together, love, and all your problems will be solved, which is what the outcome is. But she doesn't do that, because what she knows is that Dorothy needs to go on a journey. Dorothy needs to discover for herself the value that's inside her, the value of the service, the value of going on the yellow brick road. And this is what we need to invite our clients to do. Don't bombard them with the end, because then we don't have a movie. But what's your yellow brick road?
Yeah. What's
the first step that you need someone to make? And what characters might they meet on the way? What's the straw, who's that in your business cycle? Who has the brains? Who has the courage? Who has the heart? How can you show those things? And then finally, when you get clients right to the end, this is when they fear the most. If you think about the wizard, he's a fearsome, he isn't really, but he's this fearsome, big, loud, and he's actually a confidence trickster. And Dorothy says to the wizard, you're a very bad man. And he says, oh, no, my dear, I'm a very good man. I'm just a very bad wizard. So, we're all inherently good. Yes. So the end of the sales cycle, that point where we are asking people to make a decision and to put their foot forward, once they've reached the Emerald City, that still is frightening for them. But what we do is we take them back through the journey, just like the wizard does. He says to Dorothy, you have all of these things inside you. You have the brains, you have the courage, you have the heart, you have everything that you need. And now I'm asking you to make a decision by clicking your little heels together and moving on.
Yeah.
So that's what selling is. So it's allowing people, it's putting down yellow brick road, allowing people to walk on down that. And that's not to say that there won't be flying monkeys and fields of opium. Right.
Yeah.
But Glinda comes in and steers them back onto the yellow brick road at those times.
Yeah.
She's not there for the whole journey. She's only there when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah. It's a great analogy, actually. So
it is like it because the Wizard of Oz is such a foundational story about discovery, and that's what selling is. It's allowing people to take that journey of discovery with you.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, I mean, I love stories, obviously, but hopefully that will help you think about sales for you. And then if you think about how you can help people through those things, it is through stories.
Yeah.
So the reason stories are so compelling is they're so much easier for us to talk about. So instead of saying, I do this and I do this, if I say, I help clients to blah, 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 and you've just reminded me of a client that I've worked with, and what they found was suddenly we don't feel so awkward because we're talking about something that we've done, something that someone else achieved or found or felt. So our delivery of that is so much stronger. And the other person listening to it, what we're doing for them is we're inviting them to go, oh, that's how I feel. Oh, someone else has done that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how they found it at the end, blah, blah, blah.
And that's really about that connect, then that's creating connections with people.
Correct.
That's what we're all after. So, yeah.
And the last question that we did have was about following up.
Yes. So what time frame was about follow-ups? You know, it's like, how long do we let people sort of go? Is there a set time frame, you know, where you go, right, here's your proposal, I'll leave you with it, but, you know, I am going to get back to you. What do you recommend on those sorts of things?
So what I do and what I recommend to all my clients is don't leave it to chance. So if I have a meeting with you, Kath, and I go, thank you so much for the meeting today. This is what I've learned. Bang, bang, bang. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the office. I'm going to write you a proposal. I will be able to get that to you by Friday.
Yep.
Given that I do that, when should I call you?
Yeah. Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, the person will say, oh, that's fantastic. Call me on Tuesday. Sometimes people will say, oh, I need to discuss it with my partner, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. I still don't let them off the hook with that. I always try to have the ball in my court. So nicely, I say to them, great. So given that I'm giving you the proposal on Friday, when do you think you're going to get a chance to do that? And they'll say, oh, probably by the end of the next week. And I go, okay, so I should probably expect a call from you by the end of next week? And they go, yes. And I go, great. So if I haven't heard from you by the following Tuesday, would it be okay if I gave you a call? And again, most people will say, oh, yeah, look, that would be great. Because what you're doing is you're actually taking a problem away from them, which is remembering to do something.
Yeah.
And the reason this is so important for you is that suddenly, rather than thinking, oh my God, this is too soon, they don't want to talk to me, I'm annoying them, you have a date and a time that they are expecting your call. And I had a funny situation. I'm doing some training with some ecologists at the moment, teaching them how to sell. It's hilarious. Ecologists and archaeologists. I love nerds. I just love them. They're just hilarious. but I was talking about this follow-up technique, and the managing director who I did this to said, yeah, and when that Tuesday came, and I had said to Fran that I would call, that she could call, and the call came through, and I thought, I don't want to talk to her, blah blah blah. But I'd said, so I picked up the phone, and then I had to say, yeah. So it works for them too.
Yeah. Again, just helping people.
Yeah. So then sometimes, so most of the time you'll get through to the person, but sometimes you don't, and that's okay. So I leave them a message and I tell them, I'll try you again in an hour, or I'll try you again in half an hour, and I do.
Yep.
And then typically what I do is I say, look, obviously we haven't connected today. I'll try you again tomorrow. And then when I call for the third time, so I've done the appointed time kind of half an hour later, and then the next day. And then on the last, I always leave a voicemail on each one. So the first voicemail is, I'll call you again in an hour. Yep. The second voicemail is, I'm so sorry we seem to have missed each other today, but please feel free to give me a call. I'll try you again tomorrow. And on the tomorrow voicemail, I say, oh, look, Bob, clearly we're missing each other. What I'm going to do is I'll send you an email. In that email, I'll just reiterate what we were talking about, and I'll put together a couple of times that I'm available, and I'd love to hear back from you.
Yeah.
So what you find is if you do those three things, and then if I don't hear back from them, I do one more call, and I say, look, Bob, and this is the voicemail if I don't get through. Bob, thank you so much for your time. I just wanted to call and say, clearly this has moved off your priority list, which is perfectly fine. I completely understand, but I just wanted to call and let you know that I won't be following you up anymore. I will send you one last email, and if I've got this wrong, if this is still a priority for you, or if in the future you'd like to talk to me, please feel free to get in touch. So I'm very clearly ending that phase, but leaving the door open.
Yeah,
for Bob.
That sounds, and again, that's kind of like that safety to say, have them say no. In a way, rather than having to avoid you. So
well, and it's not a narky thing. I don't go, Bob.
No, we need to talk about this.
We're not lovers, So it's about being gracious and having a set pattern. So if you have a set pattern that you follow and you let people know that, so I'm going to do this, and then I'll follow you up, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do this. Then when you are closing the door, or not locking it, but, finishing that series, then you can say, what I do is I follow up a few times, and if I still don't get through to you, what that says to me is, this isn't a priority for you right now, and I perfectly understand. If it's not a priority in your business, you're not going to make a decision on it now. So it's kind of showing people that you understand where they're coming from.
That's great. Well, that was so fantastic. Thank you so much, Frances. I hope all our members got their questions answered. I think you did a very thorough job of those. So that was wonderful, and some wonderful other tips for us all. So yes, thank you very much, Frances. And I'll look forward to sharing this with our audience very, very soon. I'll catch you later.
Beautiful. Bye.